Welcome to another tutorial, and indeed we are still looking at database management. However, today we will be looking at creating a table in our database. Now, before we actually move into actually creating the table, let's look at some important information that you will need to know as it relates to creating tables. Now, for each table in the database, you should consider the following components. Simply put it, when you're creating a table, there are some components that comprise of making up that table that you should know about. Very important. We have the field name, and the field name which identifies the data stored in the field, and we have the field type as well. The field type is also called data type, and it tells the database program what kind of data goes into the field. Data types such as you have text, you have number, or date, and there are several others as well. Next to consider is the field length, and this will determine how much characters can actually hold inside of a particular field. So let's say you want to add an ID number, and you know that the ID number is going to should consist of 4 characters. So if you set that field length to be 4, therefore once you punch in or you type in the 4 characters, it will not allow you to type in a fifth. Next, we have field description, and by sound of it, it basically describes each field, tell the purpose of each field. Next, we have field properties. The field properties, this include checks to ensure that the data you enter into a particular field is actually valid. Let's talk some more about field name. The name of each field which identifies the data should be meaningful. Simply put it, you should not have a field labeled name. Reason being, if you have a field name labeled name, you would not know if the name is entered is referring to a first name or a last name. So you must be specific. So you should have, instead of having name, you should have such as first name or last name, so you can identify if the name is a first name or actually a last name of someone. The data type determines what kind of data can be entered, as well as what operations the database can perform with the data. Meaning, if you are going to perform, let's say, an additional operation on a particular data, and you set the data type for that particular field to be text, and you enter 24, database will not allow for a calculation to be done on that particular field because it is seen as a text and not a number to carry the calculation. As mentioned earlier, we also have field description. You can enter an operational description for each. Simply, for field description, you can enter an optional description for each field in the description column in the design grid. However, you do not have to enter a description. It's optional if you want to enter it or not. But for clarity's sake, some person necessarily put it in to ensure that they know exactly what particular field name is supposed to be doing or what it's all about. Some other important factors to pay keen attention to. And this in front of us right now, we have our primary key. Very important. Usually, one particular field of each record contains an item which is used to identify the record. This is known as your primary key. Primary key is said to be unique. Unique in a fact that, let's say you are working with a particular organization and you are given your ID card, and your ID card will carry specific characters. Simply put it, you will not or you should not find a next person in that organization that have the same ID card identification characters as yours. Such a field in a database would be dubbed as unique and would be suited to be set as a primary key. Now, there are several other keys. You have your candidate key, and a candidate key can also be a primary key if it is unique. However, only one field must be chosen as the primary key. Candidate key are entirely optional. We also have our composite key. Composite key is a primary key that made up of two or more fields. Let's look into it to see exactly what we are talking about. Here, you're seeing two keys. We have your CID key and you have your PRID key. In this case, we say these keys are composite key. Let's examine this some more. In a database where the same field is found in two or more tables, if it is a primary key in one table, then it is a foreign key in another table. Let's explain it some more. Let's say you have a field which is a primary key called, for example, CID in one table, and you see the CID in a next table. The fact that CID in the first table is a primary key and CID is in another table, the other table that CID is seen in, it is referred to as a foreign key in that table. So it is a primary key in one table, but it is also in the next table. So therefore, in the other table, it is seen as a foreign key. Now, our central focus is to look at the steps in creating a table inside of database. Now, as you can see that we are continuing from the previous lesson where we look at how to go about creating a database and choosing location as to where to create such database. We created a database previously called University. And now we are going to look at the steps in creating tables inside of that database called University. Yes, you realize I keep on calling the term create repeatedly. Now, the first step in creating a table inside of database is to click on your create menu, and then of course if you're going to create a table you must have a design. So we're going to click on table design. Now you are seeing this window that allows you to type in a field, allows you to select data type, and also allow you to add a description of your field. And as you see, it is optional. Now we are creating a table called department inside of our database called university. Now the first field name that we are going to type is our department ID. And of course, you need to make your field name meaningful to the data that you are storing. We move across to data type, and here you're seeing we have a list of data type that we can choose from. However, based on the data that we're storing, we're going to use short text. And we're going to leave the description area optional. But just to point this out as well, you realize that whenever I click on field name and enter a field name, at the bottom we have a field property option appearing. But just to make a few things clear, here as you realize we have field size, and you're seeing beside field size 255. That's simply saying that the maximum amount of character that can be stored in a field is 255. However, we can limit the amount of character we want to enter into a field. So let's say I want to enter only 4 characters. I could set my field size to be 4. Simply mean when I'm typing in information, I will not be able to pass 4 characters. So I'm going to let it stay at the default at 255. Moving on to my next field name. My next field name is department name. And I'm going to move across and I'm going to select short text from my option. Next is building, and for my building my data type is going to be short text. Next I'm going to put phone, and for my phone I am going to use short text as well. And you will see in short order why we did not use number for phone, instead we use text. However, there's an important feature of access in creating a database called your primary key, as was mentioned earlier. There are several keys, but one of the most important key is your primary key. And as stated, the primary key, that field have to be unique, have to be one of a kind. Now, if you look at all of these fields right here, you can have more than one department with the same name, you can have more than one building with the same name, and in some cases you might even end up having more than one phone number having the same numbers, given that it might be different network. However, when you look at department ID, you will not find employee or employer having the same ID number. The ID number would have to be unique. So therefore, we can set the field department ID as our primary key. Now, 2 ways of doing such. I can click on department ID, right click on my mouse and select primary key, or I can click on the field and I can choose primary key from right here. And just to make note as well, whenever I hover over these icons, you realize there's a description of that particular icon that comes under it that tells you once you use such command what is expected to be carried out. So there I apply my primary key. And yes, here it asking me if I want to save my table. I am going to say yes, I want to save my table, and I'm going to save my table as department. So I click on OK. And if you look to the left hand side, you are seeing the word department appears, and if I should double click on it, there you will see the structure of my table appear readily to take in information. But let's just add a couple of information in it. So department ID, let's use CSC as one, right? And please note, when we look at field, record, and table, we create a table, and the smallest piece of data is our field. And here we go, CSC would be one field in this record that I am entering now. And I'm going to enter the phone number, which is 874. And you see that dash is not a number. That is the reason why we did give phone the data type as being text. Now, to enter the next record, you simply press enter from your keyboard and it takes you below the previous one. As you can see, completed table. Now, let's just recap a few things. So we say that field is the smallest piece of data that can be stored.
in a table. And we say that records consist of a number of related fields, and we say tables are made up of records. Now, just to make that clear, here highlighted CSC is a field, and all of this row right here, everything in that line is called a record. So therefore, this table consists of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 records. Now, remember, you need to practice if you're going to develop mastery. In the next lesson, we'll be looking at creating relationship with tables as well as we will be looking at query as well. Until then, keep safe.